Hello everybody, this is Turbodog702. Be playing some Dragon's Crown today. I'm going to be playing on the PS3 version of this game. There is a version that is available for PS4 called Pro, Dragon's Crown Pro. I don't have a PS4 though, so we're going to be doing PS3 on a physical disc copy. I'm going to be doing New Game today, which means that I am not going to have any of my available data, and you can see my kind of numerous hours on this game. Makes for kind of an interesting run, a more complete view of the game at a lower level than you might be used to, lower gear rates as well. For the purposes of this solo playthrough, we are going to be using the Dwarf. The Dwarf has a number of really powerful things that we'll talk about as we continue through this run. But I am going to need a little bit of chat participation here. I need a name for this Dwarf. So if we can get a name for this dwarf.
What about Dumbledore? Come on, chat. You guys got hundreds of people out there. Give us a name.
I see Boris. Do we have any other contenders? Boris and Doris. I'll go with Bort. Bort's actually pretty on brand for me. All I do is make stupid Simpsons references that nobody picks up on anyway, so that's fine. Alright, we'll go with Amber Yellow for Bort then also. We're gonna make him Bort, the Japanese dwarf. Actually, we're gonna have to go back for just a second here, because there is something that I forgot to do, which is go to the options. We need one more thing. What type of narrator do we want, guys? Oh, we only have default. Never mind, I'm an idiot. I forgot. Because we're on New Game.
Default? Really?
Yeah, because we're on New Game, I can't put on the rest of them unless I have the Pro version of the game.
Oh,
let's
perks
see.
of having a PS4 then, I guess.
Turn off that, turn off that. We'll turn on HP gauge to display. All that stuff very important for playing this game. Alright, let's get back into it.
Indeed.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, you let me know when we start.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, so we're going to be starting basically when the screen turns black from the character select screen, alright? So, it's going to be a 3, 2, 1, go.
You seated you.
So the beginning of this is going to be mainly a tutorial here, just getting people accustomed to the basic movement of the game. And kind of the basic things for your character specifically. The dwarf has access to basic combos, basic sliding. These are things that every character can do. His aerial attack is a belly flop and a cannonball downwards. Cannonball downwards is actually pretty strong. So the interesting thing about Dragon's Crown is each person in this beat 'em up has a substantially different way that they approach fights. Dwarf, for example, is the only individual person that is able to throw enemies. No other character in the game can do so. You also have access to weapons just like any other beat 'em up. For those of you unfamiliar with Dragon's Crown is a 2D beat 'em up that uses a Diablo-style loot system and level-up system. It's also skills that you can acquire to kind of customize your character far more than the initial kind of character build that you have. So now we're going to get introduced to Ranni. Ranni is the rogue of your party, as it were. He's used to open up doors, he's used to unlock treasure chests, and kind of pick up random treasure here and there. He's kind of an idiot, though. He's kind of an idiot, though, and sometimes he won't kind of do what you want him to, which is sometimes frustrating. Another thing he'll do is if you ever lose your weapon, like you drop it or you throw it at an enemy, he will be the person that retrieves it for you. So this move that I'm doing right here where I hit the ground is called Power Slam. Power Slam is a very, very strong move that makes you invincible throughout the duration. However, you lose your weapon as you do so, and you have a cooldown before you can pick it up. Alright, so we're going to kind of get into the game proper here. The game's somewhat tutorializing us through the initial part of the game. For now, we got to go ahead and join the Adventurers Guild.
You came to Highland as an adventurer.
What you're seeing me do right here is called bunny hopping. It's one of the best basic forms of movement in the game. Other characters have slight things that might be a little faster, but that's one of the better ones you can do. The unfortunate thing about bunny hopping is you only get left and right control. You have to use dodge to kind of go up and down, which can be important for zoning in and out of certain rooms. So, we go into the Adventurers Guild, and Samuel's like, dude, all your stuff's broken, get out of here. So we do get out of here, and we're going to go ahead and go to Morgana's magic shop in order to fix it.
You must first repair your... There is no...
What would you like?
Morgana's magic shop is also going to be important for purchasing certain amounts of potions that we're going to have to do later
Your
on.
equipment is now unmarred. You should return to the guild. Once with your
So we go ahead and accept the first task of the guild, which is to go and assist with Roland the Barbarian
you head to the
at the ancient temple ruins.
A magic gate was recently found.
Nice,
in
we
the
got the little
ruins
zip
on
there.
the outskirts of town.
Saves a little bit of time transitioning to the gate. So later on we'll be able to quick travel through the city, but right now we kind of have to move
Many things
from place to
lie
place.
within the ruins of the old Elysian temple. Some quiescent.
So right here is a ferry. Ferries are high or score that does quite a bit for you. Score is kind of how you get experience and level up in the early game of this and later on. So if we can get more score, that's pretty nice. So you might be wondering why the dwarf over any other character in the game. ENB, for example, Epic Namebro has done a playthrough, for example, where he's done kind of Deathless Fighter. But the thing is that he was able to kind of grind over the course of that run. We are not going to be able to. We are going to attempt, at least, to only visit each place a single time. And so because of that, we are going to have significantly less power than you might have normally going through the game if you were doing all the quests and such. So because of that, we need to pick a character that makes the most out of their abilities and kind of their gear. The dwarf has a ton of abilities that don't care at all what your gear looks like. For example, the power bomb. The power bomb is dictated strictly on what level power bomb is and how well you position it to hit other enemies. Power bomb would be this move I'm doing here, the dwarf's throw. Later on, it'll get powered up to have a slight AoE with it as well, or just do more damage.
You have found the bones.
So we're going to pick up some bones. Bones are going to be important for one of the two quests that we are actually going to do. The only reason we do those quests in this run is because we are going to be significantly underleveled throughout. For reference, we will be fighting level 30 enemies at a scant level 13 or 14, for example. So, as you can imagine, it gets pretty rough. This is Harpy, this is the first boss. As you can see, we have a rock that we can use. So elite monsters and bosses, you cannot powerbomb. So because of that, in a lot of places, they will give you this rock in order to do damage. We'll be using that rock to great effect whenever it becomes available, as it is a source of damage that we can do to the boss that, again, is irrelevant from what our gear is.
More nests similar to this one spread throughout the area.
Speaking of things that don't care what your gear looks like, we're going to be picking up our first skills. The first one is going to be the aforementioned power bomb that I had mentioned before. Going through gearing here a little bit, selling off some unused gear. The second thing we're going to be picking up is going to be bomb satchel. But I'll kind of get into that in just a moment after I Get through this initial menuing here.
You have fulfilled the request. Report.
So we're going to go to the guild. The guild's like, wow, you got a bunch of bones that you decided not to go to the temple to resurrect.
You were ordered to
Do you maybe
attempt
do
to
that?
resurrect.
We're like, okay, sure.
As you the prayer of wandering.
And this is a tutorial talking about kind of the temple and what it can do for you.
To beat again.
Normally you can resurrect bones and they can turn into NPC allies.
Lead the wandering
For the purpose
soul
of this run, we will not be
Reverse
using NPC
death.
allies, we'll be turning them off.
and awaken them.
And in addition, this will be the only NPC that we are going to resurrect. The rest of them,
Prayer reaches the goddess.
or rather,
Pile of
sorry, we will be
Any
resurrecting
adventure
more for
you
the
can
purpose of a
please- if
quest,
you-
but we won't be using any of them. So to that extent, we're going to actually part ways with that person so that we clear out our stable of people, because you can only carry so many adventurers at a time.
You have fulfilled the request. Report your work to the guild.
So as mentioned, we're going to go back to the guild,
Often you
and
may
we're going to
give
learn
the
some
kid
skills.
you wonder.
The skills we are going to learn right now are going to be Power Bomb to increase the power of our kind of primary damage source against trash. And we're going to be picking up Bomb Satchel. Okay. We're going to go ahead and menu to kind of equip some skills here. We are also going to check
You accepted a new request from the
inside of the item shop. The reason we're going to check inside the item shop is to see if they have some potions that we would like to purchase. And they do, so we will absolutely take those. We do need to save a little bit of experience, or a little bit of gold here in order to get a blessing from the temple as well. Oops. We're going to go ahead and equip Broadhammer, we're going to equip Exalted, we're going to equip Leather Belt. We are going to equip the Health Potion and then a Strong Draft. I'll get into those in just a minute as to what they do. Just a lot of menuing that I need to do in the initial part of the game, so I do apologize if I'm not keeping you guys up to date on a couple of things.
You stand text of if
So we're going to go ahead and pray for some additional score. This isn't 100% necessary, but I find it mellows out the leveling curve quite a bit in the early game, which helps out a lot. We're going to go ahead and head to the castle and get our next mission, which is to
you bow.
get a scepter that is kind of a symbol of
In order to
office.
retrieve the
the
royal
castle.
scepter, you chase the thief.
And we're going to chase him down to the old capital and find the thief Tomet there to seek out. So I was talking about another ability that we were going to get that doesn't care about your level, and that's Bomb
These
Satchel.
are the ruins of
Bomb
the
Satchel
ancient
gives me a
capital city.
limited amount of bombs that I can use. These bombs do a huge amount of damage in an AoE.
Now it is a dangerous
However, I do have a small amount of them only, so I do have to budget them appropriately. Typically, you'll see me use bombs against problematic groups of enemies or against bosses, just because of how powerful they are. If you'll notice, sometimes you'll see kind of a red cursor on the screen. That is something that I manipulate. It's used to do things in the background, like unlock chests, search for hidden treasure, things of that nature. I'm gonna wait for Randy to open this up. Okay.
You find the band. It is when you
Getting gear early is kind of a nice thing.
apprehend him. and
Not the most
reclaim
important thing in the
scepter.
world, but pretty nice.
You cannot capture a target swimming underwater. Watch for your quarry to surface.
Ah. So I kind of did that a little bit sloppy. I was trying out a new strategy that I had learned from another runner of this game, and it cost me. Fortunately, you kind of have to wait for this section to time out, as it were, before you can continue on. It doesn't so much matter if you kill the fish or not, but yeah. So that is something that's kind of a difference between Pro and on the PS4 and the PS3 version of this game, is just your loading times are significantly different, and because of that, a lot of sequences where you don't actually need to do anything to progress take considerably longer because the game still needs to load the next rooms. Other times you just get kind of poor luck here or there. So in addition to the normal power slam, you can actually throw your weapon. Same rules apply though. If you throw your weapon, you have to wait for a certain amount of time to pass before you can pick it up again. I'm gonna eat a little bit of food there just to make sure that my health is in good condition. Alright. Typically end with a power slam just because it does a lot of damage in a pretty large AoE. And since you're invincible during it, you don't have to worry about the boss getting any kind of some last hits on you.
Who is so stunned that he's actually been caught that he cannot move.
Alright, so just some basic leveling up here. Hey, that might be a good weapon. Too bad we can't use it right now, but what are you gonna do? Selling off things is kind of important. Early on in the game, we are a little bit deficit on money, so getting a little bit of money here and there is always helpful.
You must deliver the royal scepter to the Prime Minister at the castle. Once again,
So after the castle, we are going to be accosted by a fairy who is going to try to elicit our help.
The fairy you saved in the ruins appears before you. She seems to want to take you somewhere.
She's going to try to take us to Liu Kane's tower, who is missing at this time, and has been for some time. She's going to task us with going to Wallace's underground labyrinth in order to try to find the wizard Liu Kane.
The fairy. You head to Wallace's.
Before we do that, though, we're going to hit Morgana's magic shop again, once again, just to buy up some potions. So pretty much the only thing we have to do now is get another healing potion, and then we're set on potions for quite some time. Once again, I'm going to be praying for a little bit of score, just to try and pick up that last little bit for a level. You'll notice we're not always trying to get skills every time we go to town. Every time you gain a level, you gain access to another skill point that you can use on skills. Sometimes skills will cost more than one skill point, and in addition to that, there is a minimum level that you are required to have before you can get certain skills. So because of that, sometimes we don't really need to go to the town, to the guild offices rather. Because I mean, if we're not going to get anything out of it, then why go there? It's just a waste of time. So normally, if I didn't have a good gathering on those wood golems, I might have used a bomb on them, since fire does quite a bit more damage to things made of wood, as you might imagine. Wow. Dwarf just refuses to grab this guy, but deal with it. So sometimes you'll see Tommet, the red thief, running around. He sometimes will steal your gear and your drops. That's just something that you kind of have to deal with. Not particularly important for the premise of this run, though. Other times you'll see blue thieves. Of note, the blue and red thieves never need to be the ones that you kill in order to progress. Ranny, please... just open that up. So that's an example of Randy just not doing what I told him to, which happens sometimes. You'll notice that you don't need to fight every single room you run into as well. And it's kind of important to know which ones you have to fight and which ones you can skip when you're trying to push lower times in this run. Anybody who's interested in other categories that there are for this game, there is what's called New Game Plus New Character 9 Talisman, which is another category that I've touched briefly. That is basically, when you beat this game, you are allowed to make characters at level 15 to start the game, and they start with kind of minimalistic gear. You are tasked, in that case, with using that character with no gear acquired from other characters in order to beat the game as quickly as possible. That's a pretty fun run as well, honestly, and a nice kind of jumping off point if you're interested in the new game runs of this game. Other categories include Infernal New Game Plus, which is doing a New Game Plus run with characters you've already had on the Infernal difficulty setting. And then you can always do, what do you call it? You can always do co-op as well for these. Co-op presents its own challenges though, as unless you are doing a local co-op, you'll have to deal with the game's servers and connectivity and things of that nature, which can be kind of frustrating. Okay, so this is actually kind of a problem. So we want to break these cocoons. If we don't break the cocoons, then the Doom Beetle, the thing that we're fighting right now, multiplies, makes more of himself. So we do need to break usually about 1 or 2 of those cocoons before we can fight him proper. At the start of the fight, you're noticing I'm kind of drinking a potion. That's Strong Drafts. That's the thing that I was picking up inside of the store very aggressively. Those increase your damage by 30% for about 15 seconds for the small draft. So they're a huge attack buff when you're talking about fighting the bosses of this game, especially since, again, you're going to be at a substantially lower level than you normally would be. We're running a little bit low on money here for the purpose of getting another score adjustment.
You found Lucane,
but I think that's going to be okay.
Was dead. You imagine the fairy will be.
So we're going to head to the tower.
When you
and the fairy's like, "You're an idiot. Just take it to the temple and get him resurrected." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. I am kind of stupid for not thinking of that."
Allow, quench, lead, revert, and away. The prayer reaches Lucane, shocked.
So now we're going to go ahead and head to the tower and see what Lucane wants.
The resurrected magician has returned to the old tower.
And he basically just thanks you, and he was looking for his friend Wallace, who he doesn't know what's happened to him. Tiki the fairy is going to be following us from now on. I'm going to go ahead and head to the guild. The guild's going to say that the castle wants us for some reason.
You're back.
Once again, we can't really get any skills on this, so we're not going to do so.
You assume that the letter was sent by the Prime Minister.
But when we head to the castle, we find that Count Dean, who seemed like kind of a scumbag that demanded the scepter when we brought it back, rather than the Prime Minister, is like, "Yeah, by the way, you are going to go to Castle Bilberon, and you're going to do some reconnaissance for us, and you get no say in the matter, or else we're just going to kill you." So we're like, "Okay, man, let's do some reconnaissance."
The Orc army presently controls Bilberon, the underground fortress built into the canyon.
So up to this point, Count Dean's been kind of a jerk the entire time. But we'll find out later that he is basically just trying to ensure that the throne is safe. Right now, the kingdom has kind of been in turmoil over the death of the king. And there's kind of like a power grab between the Prime Minister and Count Dean as to who's going to lead the kingdom after this. So that's the basic premise of why these two characters seem at odds with each other. Had to kind of dodge there a little bit. So this is kind of a frustrating room, as you can see, just because of how much obstacles are in your way. We're going to throw the dwarf there. We're going to pick up one of their bombs, and this time we don't need to use one of our bombs. We can use one of the goblins, which is pretty nice. Fortunately, the thief stole our treasure because Randy decided that he was going to take a break, I guess, and not open that. Yeah, very, very much inspired by the D&D beat-em-ups. In fact, I believe I want to say the art director, or at least some of the dev team for those Capcom beat-em-ups, was a part of the team that made this game. A very, very good beat 'em up. Looks at all interesting to you. Again, you can pick it up on PS4, PS3, or on Vita. One of the other really interesting things about it is that it doesn't matter what version of the game you're playing on. You can actually play with people on any platform that the game is available on. So if you have it on PS3 and your friend has a PS4, you can still play together, which is awesome. And unfortunately, I do not think that this game is going to make it to PC. Not that it's not a good enough game, or that it didn't sell enough numbers, it's just exclusivity and stuff. You know, we're kind of in the midst of issues with that involving digital storefronts, even now. But, you know, try to hold out hope. Another online game that I played that other people have been clamoring to see get a PC release of some type is Castlevania Harmony of Despair, which I've run at previous ARPGMEs, part of a team. Another potion you're sometimes seeing me use is just a basic healing potion. So this is the Minotaur. So Minotaur is kind of a jerk fight, and he's showing why there, where he can just decide to run off. And he just ran off screen, so I actually can't do anything to him. So sometimes the hitboxes are kind of wild in this game. As you can see, those last two hits, I wasn't even really close to the boss and it still hit me. Ugh. Damn. Yeah, that was kind of sloppy at the end there. But given the luck that he gave me with his charges, there wasn't a ton I could do about that. I just gotta keep chasing him and hope that he stops.
The sewer's filth. The reconnaissance mission went well. Among the treasure.
So once again, we're going to go ahead and pick up a couple of useful pieces of gear here. The rest of it we're going to sell off. Some of the gear that I'm getting isn't even for my character, so completely irrelevant. So we head to the castle to bring the sword that we obtained, which is another kind of key of office. And Count D basically says, yeah, there's a power grab for the castle. I am trying to stop because I think that the Prime Minister is a spy. And he's right. Prime Minister is totally a spy for another nation. Oops. Got a little mixed up there in my notes.
How can I help leave the temple? His wrath, you can give him.
Just a little unfortunate because I had to watch that in extra time as well, but what are you going to do? In fact, I'm going to go ahead and hit Morgana's magic shop real quick.
Which one?
And once again, I'm going to grab another strong draft. I unfortunately am not getting any healing potions, which isn't great. But it's not something I can really do. Just got to kind of live with it. Shops refresh every time that you go to a dungeon. So Roland basically, or rather not Roland, but Samuel says, hey, you should go deal with the Temple of the Dead. There's reports of missing village girls there. Every time you leave the temple from now on until a certain point in the game, that beggar shows up. So because of that, we are not going to be entering the temple anymore to get buffs to our... We aren't going to be entering the temple anymore to get buffs to our score. Let's see. So I'm giving a quick look over on my gear to see if there's anything worthwhile. We're going to go ahead and put on Dragon Mantle until we have anything else useful to get into the gate. So a big part of this game also is either not caring about the gear you have, which is one approach to gearing, or quickly assessing gear and equipping it, which is more what I'm trying to do here. I do try to skip equipping gear until I feel like I'm getting a reasonable amount of it, but eventually you do kind of just have to go inside your menu to figure out what's happening with it.
Is the only indication enough of this area's former prosperity.
So I just clicked that thing about 20 times, so hopefully Randy got the point. So normally I would not use a bomb there to kill trash. Undead take substantially more damage from fire though, and the particular enemies on that side had a lot of health. So I figured it was worth spending a little bit of extra time to make sure that I could clear them.
A strange nut. When you move, the path ahead of you is connected to the ruins.
Again, still picking up bones for now. Once we get a certain amount, we will stop.
In olden times,
so talking about bomb budgets, I know that in this room we're going to have 2 groups of zombies that spawn. Because of that, I am actually going to use a strong draft, something that I normally keep for bosses, in order to clear these zombies quicker. Another option I could use would be using a bomb to clear them. But bombs are kind of precious.
Because ghosts are incorporeal, they are completely immune to physical attack.
You notice there is like kind of a narrator as well with a very old-timey speech to it.
Drive them off.
Try and push that fantasy aesthetic as much as possible. So we will use a bomb in that case. However, from now on I need to save the rest of my bombs for the boss, unless something catastrophic happens with enemy composition. So if we do run into another situation where we need some extra firepower, we are going to be relegated to using strong drafts. So as I mentioned, bunny hopping is really important for getting from screen to screen. But your small amounts of movement here and there and vertical movement are really dictated by rolls or the evades. We're going to go ahead and power slam there since we had an incoming attack on us as well. That little cannonball ground slam is sometimes quite useful for just having a large hitbox and dealing with enemies that are sometimes problematic. Speaking of problematic enemies, this is exactly what I didn't want to happen with this enemy, which is if vampires decide they want to jump and start flying, they can be a real pain in the butt to fight. Mainly because of that. Sometimes your boulder throw will just completely whiff, despite the fact that it should be high enough. We're going to use a bomb there because that's a 3-for-1. That is going to be it for our bombs. Normally I would like to have one more to potentially get more value. But didn't have the best luck on spacing for these vampires. So we're just going to have to deal with it. Yeah, this game's really fun couch co-op or online co-op. Something I would recommend though is to pay attention to kind of the settings in the game. It can be very easy to lose track of your characters or have too much information flying on screen.
In your hand.
So sometimes you might want to only show the damage that some characters do. Or perhaps you don't want to see anybody's damage. Maybe for some reason you want to hide the enemy's life bars, unlike what I'm doing here. Another example. But the game can get very chaotic and very hectic.
Girl's disappearances. You recall what you naturally... It seemed once Bull count. That's why the Prime Minister.
Okay. It's weird. Oh, I missed guild. There we go. I do have notes on the side, but unfortunately I'm getting a little bit lost in them. Kind of the problem. So we are going to pick up Power Bomb here, but that's the only thing we're going to pick up at this time.
Stop!
So right now the king just died, and we're being apprehended by the guards just to make sure that Count Dean can solidify his rule. He then releases us. However, the Prime Minister has run off with some items of office.
Unknown pirate hideout.
So we need to chase him down and receive those items back.
The inside of the cave connects to a fissure on the coastline. It seems large enough to contain another ocean.
So this is another example of a problem screen. I'm just gonna throw a bomb there. Fortunately, I didn't pick up the other skeletons there, but that's alright. A big part of this game also is having a strategy for dealing with any of the enemy compositions, but also knowing kind of how to recover if things don't work out exactly the way you want. Speaking of compositions, not every fight in this game is static, especially on your second go-through. They will have different enemy compositions. Sometimes one group will spawn, sometimes two groups will spawn, like the amount of fights you have to do on a screen can change. So, a lot of variance as to what can occur on any given screen. Sometimes a fight will be required that you do it, sometimes it won't be, in fact. So, again, kind of reading the situation and hedging your bets is important.
According to the mermaid, the pirates scattered throughout the islands use this area as a hub
So,
to trade amongst themselves.
We're gonna go ahead and blow a
Rumors
potion
claim
here.
that among their treasures is a magic lamp that can call forth a genie.
So, Ghost Ship is actually one of the more dangerous places. Just because, again, you want to use a lot of cooldowns based on the enemy compositions you see in this level. But you only have so much that you can devote. So because of that, it can be pretty difficult to assess when you should use items and when you shouldn't. Ooh. Please don't kill me. The problem there is, if they kill me, I lose my buff that I had just applied to myself. Which would not be great. Alright, that was a really good screen. That's an example of a screen where you really want that bomb. This is another example of a screen where you really want a bomb. Alright, so now we're pretty much in the clear for bomb usage, but we will probably still need to use one more of those. We're going to use Power Slam here just to get kind of a little bit of invincibility to run around and get throws where we need them. That is another really nice thing about the Dwarf, is because a primary source of his damage in this type of run comes from his Power Bomb, he can freely use Power Slam for utility purposes or for extra damage. That can be really useful for just kind of getting yourself out of sticky situations, getting control of a screen again, as it were.
You've waltzed right into the pirates' den.
Alright, so I've used up all of my cooldowns at this point, so now this is going to be a pretty honest fight with these pirates. Luckily, these pirates are basically just an enormous mob group of enemies rather than a boss. So because of that, I can throw them and control the situation. We're going to grab the magic lamp here, and the pirates tend to want to try to get to the lamp when they can. So because of that, we are going to be able to lure them over here into throw range, and then use our Power Bomb and general throwing ability to control this fight and kill them off while they're kind of trying to get to a lamp that they will never get to. Well, they might get to it like that, but they're not going to be able to use it. Meanwhile, we're just gathering them up for huge damage with Power Bomb. Depending on the character you use, or how safe you want to be, you could take this like different ways. For example, later on, Fighter gets an ability that makes an enormous whirlwind around them that controls a ton of space around them. That can be really good for just setting the lamp in the middle of the screen and then just swinging your sword until they're dead.
The magic lamp granted a wish
Okay.
and flew off. You find
So,
the orb
Castle
stolen by
Guild
the Prime
Tower.
Minister.
Finally back where my notes need to be. Some items you really don't want to identify even, just not to waste the money. If you don't think that they're going to be better than what you have.
The orb you retrieved must be returned to the castle.
Going to the castle, giving the orb back
Prince,
to
you've won
Count
the
Dean.
succession. The ship also worse. You are. I need it.
We're going to go ahead and head to the guild, and
After
at the guild
completing a
we
large
receive
task,
a message
you
from
return
Lucane to head to the tower, and he wants to talk to us about Rune magic.
It is a, you tell the.
Welcome back.
You entered Lucane's tower to ask about his.
Basically what he says is that runes are a thing that can be activated by even mundane people in order to create great effects. They're a mechanic in the game that's used to give you buffs as you continue
You
through
head to the ancient temple ruins at
mission.
Lucane's behest.
It's also used for certain plot critical things,
Which one do you
which we'll see
want?
later on. Yeah, we are getting a lot of strong drafts, which is good, but we are not getting any healing potions, which is bad. So, actually, I'm going to go ahead and check over. So we got 615 crit and stun. This is poison. Yeah, this is going to be the best thing that we got. We got 9. Take that. Belts. Dragonhide belt, sure. 9 in fire. 9 in human, okay. We got a little bit of a power up in our gear. Nothing huge, massively substantial. But again, you want to make sure that your gear is at least reasonably up to date as you continue through. So we're going to be headed to the Forgotten Sanctuary. Lucane wants us to study Rune magic
In the age of
and
the gods, mankind built a
kind of
giant
see what's
tower
happening
in a
with runes
sacred
and how they
place
work.
in an attempt
To that end, there is a golem that we can study here. But as we continue through here, we learn that there is a ritual being done by an evil cult of Mornion to resurrect the Demon King. While we aren't going to have to deal with the Demon King yet in our travels, we will need to eventually. So that's an example where the scorpions don't even matter there. We can completely ignore them. So we always kind of want to try to scroll the screen as far as possible just to get the most enemies as we can on screen. As you can see, for small enemies, we can actually chain the power bomb into kind of a spinning attack, which is kind of cool. Okay, so Randy was unable to open up that treasure chest, so we just leave. It's not the end of the world again. So big thing for this stage, we do want to save 2 to 3 bombs for the boss at the end of this. But we still do want to use the other bombs that we have aggressively to finish off enemies in a time-efficient manner. Like that. So we can use one more bomb, potentially, and I know exactly where I am going to use it. Ooh, that was not great. Actually, for this boss, I actually don't need bombs. I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit more aggressively with them as a result. So unfortunately, the dwarf doesn't have a great way of hitting this nest other than to power slam like I just did there. But you learn to cope. To be fair, the dwarf actually has a much better tool than a lot of characters do for dealing with these wasps in his power bomb. Sometimes it can be difficult for certain characters to hit enemies that are at the top of a screen or just flying around or hovering. Okay. There we go. I was trying to corral them, but they weren't really cooperating, so I had to force them at it. Randy, you wanna do what I told you to? Alright. So unfortunately I waited for that, but it was trapped, which is another really frustrating thing that can happen, but what are you gonna do? So this is an example of a plot critical rune that we have to do, which is Life from Stone, that makes the golem behind us move. We now have to escort this golem to fight another golem that is guarding the ritual, basically. So once again, this is kind of a enemy rush, and this is all about kind of coping with enemy groups. Luckily, the golem is pretty durable, and in addition to that, goblins are spawned from you that give you bombs. The reason for that is if your golem was to die, you would have to fight the golem at the end of this yourself, and his health totals and defense are kind of too high for you to do without these bombs. So kind of a fun thing that this game does often is it will give alternate win conditions for completing a stage, like different ways that you didn't think to fight a boss in your initial run in the game. That was really, really poor for that goblin to throw that bomb right there. And that's kind of the way that you do die inside of this stage, is you either get hit by random stray fireballs from the imps that are flying around, or you get hit by a bomb that you just didn't see. That's why it's important to try to control both of these aspects of the fight. It's also important to understand your win conditions for this, which is that you are not going to really do a ton of damage to the boss. You might throw a grenade here or there, but in essence, you are just making sure that these guys don't overwhelm the golem. That should be death for him. Yeah. Between the extra bombs and the last sword strike there, that match was pretty much over.
A maleficent stone tablet has been placed high upon the altar in the center of the temple. When you remove it...
Alright, so now we're going to head to the tower to tell Liu Kang what we found.
You decide to...
And he's still going to be concerned about his friend Wallace, who he was unable to find inside the underground labyrinth. He's also going to mention that
you can feel unspeakable
he needs to find more
emanating from the
information
stone
about
tablet.
the Demon King, and he needs to know its
report
name.
Now you put
And
the-
you've
upon
heard the
name.
name of the Demon King before in town, or you should have if you talked to the beggar outside the temple.
The name
So,
of the Demon King.
That is
My
your
genius.
kind of clue to head to the temple, leave,
What troubles you, my child?
and subsequently get the information you need. I'm going to check how many people I have. I have 24 out of 28. That's decent.
When you step
So this
in,
old guy is
the
actually
power to do
Lucane.
without the
He's
old
been
man.
warped. And he kind of gives you the information that you need to bring it to...
The magician Wallace, who disappeared.
Sorry, that's
is
Wallace. And he
Lucane's
gives you the
friend.
information that you need to talk to Lucane about the Demon King.
Lucane, the Wallace, even Luke Mornion.
How can I help you?
You infiltrate the Mage's Tower to find the Dragon's Crown.
So I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping here. Because right now I have a lot of items inside of my inventory, but not a lot of them are particularly useful. I also need to check to make sure. Okay, I have plenty of potions on that particular setup as well. So we're actually going to sell a bunch of stuff. And again, this is just to clean up our inventory so that we have less things to search through when we're looking for relevant things. Okay, we got our other healing potion, which is good. We don't need any more strong drafts. I don't know why I bought that, I just did. We're going to head to the guild,
You're back.
and we're going to get our next levels of skills. Which is going to be a another level of Power Bomb, or Bomb Satchel, rather. We're also going to pick up Drink It Maniac, which gives us some healing when we pick up treasure, and restores our durability as well. Which can be pretty helpful. So we're going to go ahead and head to the Mage Tower to try and find out more about the Black Rune Stones, which are said to hold the powers of the Ancient Dragon at bay. And we have a suspicion that the Cult of Mornion is trying to release the dragon.
The Mage's Tower, once greatly admired by magicians as a...
So funny thing about this place is that you can actually skip a lot of the screens in it. This is kind of a nice breather for the speedrun, in that a lot of the screens inside of this, on the B route at least, that we'll do later on, are a lot of auto-scrollers and things that go on their own. For the premise of New Game, though, for this point in the run, not so much. We do have to kind of keep the pace up. Now,
A half-naked Rune after the leaders had already concealed themselves.
alright, so we should be almost done picking up bones. So unfortunately, I can't do the Resurrection quest until I unlock the B-Paths. You'll notice sometimes I'm talking about the B-Paths. I guess I could kind of talk a little bit about what that is. So after you beat these missions the first time, you are tasked with obtaining the talismans that are necessary to defeat the Ancient Dragon. In order to get those talismans, you have to go down a different route in the level called the B route. That level has different enemies, different screens, different bosses as well. Also much more difficult, both level-wise and typically for the boss, although honestly, some of the A-path bosses I think are considerably harder than the B-path ones. So since this is an auto-scroller, just a nice little elevator sequence like all beat-em-ups have, we're just gonna kind of do whatever. Speed isn't really necessary in this screen. It's just about control and making sure that you don't lose any health. Okay, so this screen's gonna be kind of important as well. So, depending on how these guys decide to gather up, I can save a lot of time. That was really good. So as you saw there, I just threw one bomb and killed probably about 15 enemies. And that's something that other classes just can't really do effectively. Another power of the dwarf. You're kind of wondering about overall strength. I think Dwarf is the most powerful character for early and mid-level.
Any further progress forward.
But once you get into the far late game, Amazon becomes the best character in the game. She just scales much more strongly, and if you can play perfectly, she gains so much out of her gear and her abilities. Dwarf is still really, really good at that point, probably second best in the game.
The molten lava attacks you as if it is alive.
The big thing that
Stir the magic carpet.
holds Amazon back is until later games she doesn't have a really good tool for doing long-range damage. But as you get better and better gear and more skill points, you get access to long-range abilities. We're failing this on purpose, by the way. This sequence would take about a minute more than if we just fail it here. Okay, so we have 4 bombs, which is pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and drink a potion here. Eat this food as well. This fight can be kind of annoying as well, depending on how the Warlock decides to do his moves. Oh, missed with that grenade also, which is not great. I keep calling them grenades, they're actually just bombs, but I think you guys get the point. So I wanted to save at least 1 bomb for that animate dead spell, so that I could do exactly what I did there.
That the magician's use has a special characteristic. Look at the colors of the orbs. The warlock is on a high-level incantation.
So I kind of had to give him a little bit of space there while he was doing Meteor Swarm. So there was an example of using the Power Slam basically specifically for the invincibility. It was a pretty decent fight. I wish I hadn't missed that last bomb, or the second bomb of the fight, but that's okay.
One of the Mornion leaders. However, you didn't find the dragon's crown.
So we didn't find the Dragon's Crown, which was another tool besides the Black Rune Stones that can be used to control the dragon once it's been summoned. So that's concerning for the kingdom.
You must return the black runestones you acquired to Lucane. They had he up first.
Oh,
So he's now, Lucane's like, I need more information about the Dragon's Crown and about these Black Rune Stones. So I need you to go to a person that's studying the forest. But I can't ask him because we had a falling out.
Asking for the hermit's aid. You must go into the lost woods.
Unfortunately, that means that we have to get a letter from Count Dean explaining our cause so that the Hermit will help. Count Dean's not here, though. He's on some sort of business.
You should ask Sam.
But Vivian composes a letter that we should take to the Hermit.
Adventurers Guild has forbidden the use of the gate, and the... You asked Sam, but Sam, you can travel.
you're back.
Alright, so we're going to go ahead and pick up a couple skills. We're going to pick up Grand Smash, which improves our Power Slam ability. We're also going to pick up Bomb Satchel, or Fire Barrel, rather. Fire Barrel is going to be our next explosive that we're going to use in order to deal damage.
You venture into the lost woods to ask the hermit about the ancient dragon.
So we're going to swap out this strong draft, different one, because it's getting low on charges. 920 magic damage, demon foe, damage taken. We're going to take this because the next boss that we're going to fight is going to be demonic. 11. We've got to make sure that we equip Fire Barrel there. Okay, so 9 defense is fine on this. Continue on. I know my thoughts are kind of scattered at this point, but again, there's just so many things that I need to menu and kind of consider as I'm doing this. So, a lot to go through, despite being a longer run. Gonna head to the Lost Woods with this message so that we can talk to Tim, the sorcerer. So, funny thing about the Lost Woods is basically an enormous Monty Python homage. And you'll see that immediately once we get to Tim. That being said, it has other things that it does as well. Like, for example, the boss of this is the Gazer, who is pretty clearly just a beholder from Dungeons & Dragons. But a lot of homages in this stage to tabletop RPG settings and kind of pop culture. Earlier on in Wallace's Labyrinth, we also saw Ricky the Rat. It's a reference to another fantasy movie. So there's Tim the Enchanter, obviously.
You take a boat across the underground
Ready with his magic staff. Or maybe just his rocket launcher, depending on how you see it. So we're very quickly reaching the point in which we will start seeing the B-path routes. We've seen basically every map up to this point. Or, of course we'd seen every map up to this point. That was really poorly said. We've seen pretty much every map that this game has to offer as far as areas. So we're going to be off to the B routes soon enough. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying the marathon so far. There's a lot of runs coming up here in the future. I know I'm kind of keeping an eye out for the Demon Soul run. I think that's on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. A game I've been mildly interested in looking into for speedrunning. Just like a lot of other speedrunners that I'm sure you guys know as well. It's just, there's always like 100 games that you're interested in learning, but it's about budgeting your time.
Yeah, Demon Souls is about 10:20 a.m. EST.
Kind of what's coming up down the pipe for today, Mash?
Well, up after this, we have Mildred back with some Dark Souls shenanigans with a boat only run.
It will be destroyed.
We got some wise memories of Zelda with Ghost Kumo.
That's actually a pretty cool run as well, if you guys are into somewhat longer runs.
It's actually not that long of a run, surprisingly, for a wise game. We got Fable after that, the original Fable. And then some Tales games, and then a whole bunch of Kingdom Hearts going into Saturday.
Gotcha.
So pretty stacked, a bunch of games going into Saturdays, and lots of cool, interesting games on Sunday as well.
I actually didn't mean to break that, but oh well, I guess. To answer your question, Dwarf is the only character that has the ability to throw. No other character in Dragon's Crown can throw. That's kind of his shtick, is physical-based crowd control. He's quite good at it. So mud golems are really annoying. They have a ton of HP, and in addition to that, they have some animation invincibility. To briefly talk about that, certain enemies in this game do not take damage or cannot die when they are in the middle of a certain animation of theirs, like a certain move or a certain series of animation frames. And the Mud Golem is one of those. Basically, if the Mud Golem starts any of his attacks, you can't break him down, like I just did there. And if you don't break him down, even if he has 0 health, you have to break his body parts. There's just no way around it. Consequently, this is probably one of the hardest stages in the game, is the A route of Lost Woods, particularly because of the boss, the Gazer, that I mentioned before. And hopefully you'll kind of get a feel for that when I do fight him, because I suppose it might be kind of difficult to tell what the issues are until you actually see the boss and what it does to characters. Just has a lot of moves that control a lot of space, come out very quickly, don't have great tells for them as well. Big part of dodging in any game like this is knowing a boss's tells. When they're going to do what move, how the boss indicates that he's going to do those moves, and the Gazer just doesn't have a good way of doing that. So oftentimes you'll get hit by a move that you just never saw coming. Luckily, I kept a bunch of gas for this, just because of how much of a jerk this boss is.
A Gazer's main eye can nullify your magic effects. Beware.
Okay. So that's an example of a move that I don't even want to come close to him when he's in the middle of it. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to get out of there in time, so I elected to burn my power smash. As difficult as this looks, dodging this fight, it's actually not too bad, and it gives me a good opportunity to deal damage to the Gazer, so I'm totally fine with that. This move a little less. The purple attack is one of the worst attacks in the game to have to deal with for most characters. There are different types of potions. There's basic healing potions. There's strong drafts, which increase your damage by 30% for 15 seconds. For the small version, there's defense potions, there's resist potions, there's regeneration potions, all sorts of things. For the purposes of this run, we only use the strong drafts, which is damage up, and basic healing potions. Actually, we will identify that one. Alright, so we go to head to the tower, then the castle, then the tower, then the guild.
The books you borrowed from the hermit are immediately all in the memory King Dean's. Which one? Frantically, your mind offers.
So at this point, we learn that King Dean has been killed by the Mornion leaders, and his blood used to fuel a ritual to summon the ancient dragon.
A spark of... Unfortunately,
so Liu Kang's like, we need the talismans in order to weaken the dragon, so that we can fight him head on.
You need the 9 talismans to defeat the ancient dragon.
And from here on out, it's looking a lot closer to the 9 talismans run that you get from New Game Plus New Character.
Welcome back.
Oops. We actually don't want to get skills right now because we are going to be leveling up these quests. So these are the only 2 quests we're going to do. We're going to do Search and Resurrection. We're going to do Henrietta's automatic doll. The reason we're going to do these is because we can easily complete them very quickly. So we've been picking up bones this whole time. The reason for that is specifically for this quest, so that we can resurrect 30 people. So I'm going to go ahead and just do 4 of these bones, because we still need to get 2 more. The cap for bones that you can pick up on a patch version of this game is 28. 30 is required in order to do the quest. Now that we've done all A versions of the pass as well, we now have unlocked online play. We will not be doing online play. We're going to go to the Mage Tower to just finish a quest and then quit out.
Once greatly admired by magicians as a...
So we need these mages to shoot at us so that we can enter a secret room and respawn the bone
on the wall
that was on the floor there. We also get that quest done.
On the stage.
And we can get a nice little treasure there on the side. what else do we got? So we're going to go ahead and finish up with the Temple Resurrections.
What troubles you, my
And this is going to take a little bit of time, so I'm going to take a moment to go over my notes. Okay. Search and resurrection, that, got those. So we should be almost to level 14 by the end of this. We might even pick up 14 if there was, like, some crazy luck. Chances are we will not, though. But we're going to be picking up a bunch of skills, since we've been kind of pooling up points to be used. When you complete quests, you also get points as well, and experience. So that's where a lot of that's going to come from. So a lot of the abilities that the dwarf has are just his basic abilities, the power slam and the power bomb. However, the fire barrels and the bombs that I'm using are consumable, and I do not refresh them until I go back to town, which is going to be relevant for the B pass, because in the B pass we are actually going to continue adventuring for a longer period of time than just single maps. So because of that, I'm going to be making a second bag, and that second bag is going to have another bunch of fire barrels and bombs that I can use. I'm actually going to go ahead and pray for higher score as well here.
How can I help you?
Just to get the last little boost. This is going to be the last time I do a prayer. Alright, we're going to go to the Adventurers Guild. We need to learn our skills before we set up our next bag. Oh. Except we actually need to do quests first.
There's
There
a
we go.
request.
And the quests all have kind of like funny tinges to them if you go through them normally. Most of them equate to, we wanted to make the world better, but oh god, it all backfired on us. I think that's everything that we need to get here. I did get toughness, correct? Yes, I did. Okay. So now we can go ahead and make our second bag. We'll go ahead and take that. We'll put on that. Strength potions, put on fire barrel, put on bomb satchel, put a healing potion. I think we're all good here. 9 to 20 I think is still our best item. Yeah. Alright, the last thing we're going to do, we're going to go to Morgan's Magic Shop, see about getting maybe another potion, and then repairing. So there's our healing potion that we really wanted. We're going to repair our equipment, and then we're going to be on our way. So the first place we're going to go is going to be the Ancient Temple Ruins, just like at the beginning of the game. There we're going to fight Medusa on the B path. The reason we picked this one is because she's one of the easier bosses to do on the B path, and she has a cooking minigame after her stage. Kind of touch on that, after certain stages inside of the game, you are able to do a cooking minigame that you can use to gain power for the next levels. Those levels are the Ghost Ship, the Old Capital, and the Ancient Temple Ruins. We're going to be using this power to just strengthen up before taking on some of the harder bosses. Because right now, we're going to be fighting bosses that are level 20, level 30 bosses at level 14. Like, right now, this is only a level 18 boss that we're going to be fighting with Medusa, but that's still 4 levels above what we're rocking right now. So now we don't need any more bones. You can see Power Slam is going to be more and more useful for dealing with more problematic encounters. A lot more of the enemies can kind of knock me off my feet at this point, so I need to respect that and deal with them appropriately. But it becomes even more important to budget out my cooldowns like bombs, though. Because, like, unlike inside the other missions on Route A, a lot of these bosses, I do not have enough power to really kill them unless I use bombs. I could do something using rocks to power bomb them with, or just kind of play very passively, but not exactly the fastest thing to do, right? So I can't just dump cooldowns on this boss due to the fact that we're going to do about 3 fights.
Anyone who meets your gaze is turned to stone.
But we can use some cooldowns on
To
these.
avoid suffering a stony fate, you must not look into her eyes.
So the purple attack's probably the worst one to deal with. Ugh, I got grabbed.
If you find the going difficult, consider ducking into a building to recuperate.
Oof, and then I got caught by that. It's not uncommon to take a death against Medusa, though. She does a lot of damage and she controls a lot of space. The more important thing is to kind of get back into it when you do take a death. She can only die in this position, so the fact that she went to the right side of the screen is a little unfortunate for death animation purposes. But we are going to start doing cooking. So cooking is kind of a complex minigame. It has to do with putting certain foods in either a pan or a pot, cooking them a certain amount with spices, and then eating them. And you have to do this all in real time. So it's very important to have a feeling for timing, what foods are the best in what vessels, and when you can sneak in the opportunity to eat the food that you've cooked.
For you will need to be prepared
For the purposes of this cook, the best things that we can use are snakes, which is the Medusa boss food, and carrots, funny enough. So stirring, which is what I'm doing here to the snake, basically pushes the food to get cooked quicker. I've actually done a fair amount of study on the cooking principles and like what works and what doesn't. And one of the really nice things that you can do is actually pre-season your pan, is what I call it, which is dropping seasoning into the pan before there's actually food in there. You can only benefit from a spice or a seasoning once, so you can't just keep dumping the same spices in and hoping for the best. In addition to that, it's important that I don't leave something to cook for too long, because if I do, then it will burn. If it burns, then I get a massive decrease to the effective stats that I get from it. So how do we determine what's the best food to eat? And what are the best buffs that you can have available for it? That's really just a matter of maximizing the amount of attack power we get.
after your meal.
So there I got 32% to my attack and 18% to my defense. That's a pretty typical cook for me. That's basically the most that I've been able to squeak out as a solo player. So even if I did a little bit of suboptimal things, it really doesn't matter in the end, because any food that you don't eat doesn't help you, and you can only cook things so fast. Okay, so we got a fairy here, so that's kind of nice for the purposes of experience. Fairies give you a nice boost to your score, and a wait for Randy to unlock this.
Oh, yeah. Suddenly, a piece which path?
So this time we're going to be chasing after the Cyclopses.
You learn that the labyrinth was built to contain the Cyclopes. Pursue the magician with the key.
This is another place where we can kind of skip a couple rooms here if we know where exactly we're going. I'm using a power slam here just to protect me while Ryan opens up the door. Couple chests always inside of this room.
Oh, yes. Simple. Let's see.
Wow, come on, buddy.
Oh, I can do that.
So once again, we got to deal with these mud golems. That kind of animation Locke I was talking about. Hey, we only got one fight, so it's pretty typical to fight 2 mud golems there. That's a savings of about 30 seconds or so. It really kind of depends on what the enemies want to do. But I usually rate that between 20 and 40 seconds. Oh, wow. He actually bit me through my cannonball attack. It's kind of uncommon. As you can tell, zombies are kind of jerks. They will just, very much like Resident Evil, grab you immediately if you come in range of them.
You spot the stolen key lying next to the crushed corpse of the magician.
Alright,
It's
we're gonna
clear
go ahead
how
and
he
eat some
met his
food here.
demise. The door to the
Cyclopses
prison
aren't
is
a
wide
particularly difficult boss, but
If you shut the door
they can
before
cause
the
problems here and there.
stampede, you may still have a chance to control the situation. Put the key in the keyhole in front of the cell to contain the Cyclopes. The Cyclopes are furiously resisting your attempts to...
So we need to make sure that those hands don't open up the door, or else more Cyclopes spawn.
The Cyclopes are furiously resisting your attempts to close the door.
So we do want to save a tiny bit of gas still, even for after this boss. Because there are a couple screens in the next stage
Your attempts to close the door.
that could be problematic.
You were able to lock and seal the Cyclopes prison once again. Ricky,
So we're going to have
the
one more
magician's
stage to
apprentice,
do
is a
before
late-
we head back to town. And this one is going to be
In the age of
probably the
gods,
hardest stage in the game,
mankind built a
honestly.
giant tower
It'd
in a
either be the
sacred
Gazer
place
or the
and
Archdemon
protect
here.
the world of the gods.
As I was mentioning, this is going to be an example of a level 30 boss
The entire city was leveled.
that we are fighting way too early. So I told Randy to open that up. We'll see if he actually cooperates or not. Typically, he will not. Right.
You meet a which path?
So we're going back to our first
Prevent
bag
the resurrection of
that we
Demon
had used
King.
for the
You
Medusa.
decide to stop the fight
Because of
at
that,
the
we do
source,
not have all of the
crushing
bombs that we have when we first start a map. But we did keep a lot of gas for this particular map because, again, Medusa's not particularly strong. Her stage isn't particularly hard. This one is. Fortunately, we got a gladiator spawn here. These big elite soldier guys have a lot of health. You can't throw them either, so one of the better ways of dealing with them... Well, normally you can't throw them unless you stun them like I just did. So one of the better ways of dealing with them is to just power slam them to death.
The magic circle you discovered is most likely being used as part of the ritual. You accidentally touched the magic circle and have been transported to the demon realm.
And while this may seem like it is a lot of just throwing enemies, like, this is a game that's very much about positioning. Like, it's a game that's simple at its base premise, but becomes very difficult to play at lower levels. It's because any mistake that you make is amplified. Any enemy that you aren't controlling is a significant threat. Wow. So this is a lot of mages. Mages can be actually really frustrating to deal with if they decide to just run away from you constantly. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I've also used up all of my healing pots at this point, which is not great. So hopefully that doesn't come to bite me in the butt. Like, this is even with plus to demon damage as well, and it's taking this long to kind of hit these guys, so...
The Demon King is still struggling to break free from his bindings. With his power sealed, you may still be able to banish the Demon King.
So this is the Demon King that we mentioned before, that was trying to be released. So we are going to try to stop the ritual to free him. That's not going to stop the Ancient Dragon from being under the control of the Mornion Legion, but, you know, take care of one thing at a time, right? Alright.
The Demon King shouts bitter invectives at you until judgment has been rendered upon it once again.
So very important we take care of these two braziers at the top of the screen. That's what's summoning the demons here. Once we've gotten control of that, then the screen becomes far more manageable. Also, those are the triggers for clearing the screen, is killing those and killing the mages, so... So funny enough, the trigger for this screen, like, 9 times out of 10, is just opening that chest. So, yep, there we go. Kind of a weird screen because of that. So we're gonna have to fight the Archdemon here. I'm gonna try not to spend too much gas on this first section, just because I am in such bad health condition. And I'm gonna have to kind of focus for this. Very easy for this fight to get out of control. Trying to save my cooldowns also for the second half of this fight. So I'm fully expecting to die here, but I can't just keep ignoring my cooldowns. Nice. So that's a Deathless Archdemon. Those are quite rare. It's so easy for something to go wrong, him to cast a really, really bad magic spell that you just can't anticipate. That went really well. So we're going to return to town, gain a bunch of levels here, and take our 3 talismans. So at this point, we are just going to pick up every piece of gear that we can here. And not even worry about selling, because the money isn't really important at this point now.
You need 6 more talismans to defeat the ancient dragon.
Okay, so one of the first things and most important things we're going to pick up here is Deep Pockets. Deep Pockets gives us another slot in our bag to fill up with items. We're also going to improve our Power Bomb, we're going to improve our Grand Smash, and we're going to get Powder Mastery, which increases the power of our fire barrels and our bombs. Very, very powerful ability. So now that we do have an extra slot, we will see what we got. We got Cape and Belt. Okay, we do not currently have any gloves that we can put on, but we will check for a different weapon. This looks like the best at 1445. This one's gonna be better. Anything as far as stuff? We're gonna go ahead and put on 18 there. Yeah, this is all ever. Alright, we're going back out. So this time we're going to be going after Kraken, the Castle of Bilberon, the Gargoyle's Gate, and the Kraken. And the Wraith, rather.
The inside of the cave connects to a fissure on the coastline. It seems large.
So I did skip repairing there, which can be good or bad. Just depends on how things work out here.
There are myriad tales of ships disappearing here.
So after we kill these guys, some bats will spawn. Funny enough, you have to kill the bats in A route, but not in B route, which is kind of nice. Wow, police throw, thank you. That was really good. Sometimes you can have 2 or 3 groups there, but the singles are really nice.
The Kraken lurks in the cave and attacks ships that pass through the area.
Okay, so this is an elite skeleton. Elite skeleton is immediately, basically, we're going to be using a bomb. And we just missed it. Sick. Go me. This is one of the problems with skeletons, is sometimes they'll engage you, sometimes they won't engage you. It's kind of frustrating. Yeah, so that cost us a little bit of time there, clearing that up. We're gonna skip this screen. So in this screen, you're supposed to fight off the Kraken using the cannons, but it's actually faster again by about a minute to skip this. The magic carpet in the Mage Tower, the boat ride inside of the Lost Woods, all of these things, if you complete them, give you kind of high quality treasure. So the tentacle that wraps around the mast always does DPS. The tentacles that are slapping the ship, actually, they have a slap and they have a curl, which is a grab. If they curl to grab you, it doesn't deal damage to the ship. So it's kind of a 50-50 shot whether or not they help you or not. For the purposes of this is relatively poor luck. I think we only got like 3 or 4 slaps.
You swim to shallow water and avoid drowning. You saw the Kraken go into this cave. Now it's your turn. Press your advantage.
So another slight advantage to doing that auto-scroller is you don't have to fight these fights on the way to the Kraken. But even with the fights, it still saves about a minute. It's actually the reason why it saves only a minute and not significantly more. That spin move that lizard man is doing is like one of the worst moves in the game. Because it lasts so long and you can't even really oppose it. Just kinda gotta let him do it. So, funny thing about the Kraken, we can't use bombs on him or fire barrels. The reason for that is since he's in water, the water actually keeps the fuses and fires from combusting. So because of that, we are going to be basically tethered to the boulder. There's also ads that show up, as you can tell. Very important that I pay attention to which attack the Kraken is doing. He has a poisonous ink cloud that can kill you extremely fast. Which is right here that he's using. I have to kill the tentacles before the Kraken will take damage again. So that's why I'm kind of going out of my way to deal with that. Alright, that was a pretty good fight for Kraken. Anything less than 2 waves is pretty good.
That have been terrorizing the sea. Many sailors will certainly raise.
So now we get to the Kraken, which is one of the best cooking sequences in the game. Kraken's meat gives you about half the benefit of the best meat in the game, but 2 of them spawn over the course of the cooking. Different meats have different respawn rates on the table. So for example, Kraken will show up, if I cook it immediately, Kraken will show up again at about 30 seconds left on the timer. Certain other boss meats never respawn. Ugh, grabbed the wrong thing. So other than that, we're going to be using Barracuda Steak and Hair to get the rest of our effective power. Why did it not drop in there? Who knows? So I've already made some minor mistakes on this cook, but I'm going to deal with it. Oh, please. Okay, this is actually pretty bad. Because due to the timing that I had on that, I'm going to have to let that burn and just grab the Kraken. So I basically missed out on that salmon steak, or the Barracuda steak, which is about 6% on attack. So instead of getting 62% attack, I'm going to have 56. Again, not the end of the world. The more important thing was that I was able to finish cooking the Kraken meat.
The King's army has been mounting a fierce offensive to try and reclaim.
I got it.
So sometimes this is a screen that can take a long time for the enemies to spawn. Other times, the trap's there, and I can just leave. So yeah, looks like I got a trapped chest, a rogue, and enemies, which is about the worst luck you can get on that screen.
Step into which path? The King's army, in trying to breach the impregnable Gargoyle Gate, is suffering many casualties. You decide to join in the skirmish and support the King's Army's attempt to break through the gate.
Okay. So I can be pretty aggressive with my use of cooldowns in this. I can't be completely flippant with them, because I may need some gas for Gargoyle Gate. But Gargoyle Gate actually has a gimmick to it, where you use cannons in order to break the gate down. And that's where the majority of your damage comes from. You can notice some of the death quotes on the bones as I pass over them are kind of funny. If you have people that are friends that play the game, you can actually get custom kind of like things that they say when they're coming back from the dead and stuff. It's cute. In order to do that, though, you have to connect to online, and well, for the purpose of this marathon, maybe I don't want to do that in case there's some lewd stuff going on.
Into the bloody chaos, where both
Lewd,
armies are
bony
exchanging
stuff.
blows and cannon fire.
So the only thing I need to kill in order to get out of this section is the larger orcs there. The rest of these guys I can completely ignore.
Just beyond here is the notorious Gargoyle Gate. A gate this solid cannot be destroyed without a massive cannon. Use the King's Army's cannon to breach it.
Oh wow, that was really good luck. Apparently, the other guys didn't spawn there. Okay. So I'm positioning these cannonballs in such a way that I can quickly get to them when it becomes relevant. Same thing for the torch here. Okay, so I'm expecting the cannon to come. There it is.
They are targeting the cannon. Kill off the enemy before they can destroy it. You see cracks forming in the vulnerable Gargoyle Gate.
So we're gonna get one more bomb from, or one more cannonball from these guys. That should be enough to kill off the boss. Yeah, pretty close. So we are gonna have to keep the last two explosives we have for the following stage. But that was a pretty decent Gargoyle Gate.
The soldiers of the King's Army praise you and your team for conquering an important gate of the underground fortress.
So now we're going to come up on Wraith. Wraith is not a particularly hard boss on normal. In harder difficulties, he becomes way worse. Or, the character class you are playing cannot quickly control large groups of undead enemies, which I guess is not the easiest for certain characters. Worf does a pretty admirable job of it, though.
A strange night. The night. Which path will?
Yeah, if you don't have your weapon, you do have the ability to punch. Dwarf actually has certain skills that he can learn that make his punches considerably better. However, we are not really able to use those because of how strict the routing is on skill points. Also, in addition to that, you're never going to do as much damage with your fists in normal as you will from doing power slams, power bombs, or throwing bombs. So it's just not worth your time to really get it in this particular category. Or in New Game Plus New Character. In Infernal, it can be a pretty nice tool. So in order to make the Wraith vulnerable, we need to bring the torch here over to the statue.
Only the light shone by the angel statue will expose.
We're gonna wait until the
divine light shines forth, exposing the Wraith's only weakness, the dream.
I'm gonna clear out the undead underneath the Wraith here. Ah, that was annoying. Okay. So unfortunately, he ended up breaking this statue, but that's okay. In a really, really good attempt for this, you can get him before he breaks that statue, but I was just not able to control the undead as well as I needed to. It's okay, though. It's still pretty good.
You destroy the Dream Heart and send the Wraith back to the underworld.
So we're going to go ahead and head back to town now.
Destroy death.
We're going to go ahead and repair our gear, get some new gear, and we're going to go ahead and make our bomb bag larger. So that's S rank gear, which can be pretty useful depending on what it gives us.
You need 3 more talismans to defeat the ancient dragon.
1445. Yeah, that's gonna be better. This is gonna be better. Looking through this, A on belt. So before we do anything else, we're going to go ahead and hit the organ shop.
Which one do you want?
Ooh, we got medium strong draft. That's actually something that we did want.
What would you like?
We'll deal with that later. Go ahead and sell off all this stuff. Don't need to look at it. None of this stuff was particularly useful either.
Which one do you want?
We're gonna check over, make sure we have our strong drafts. Yeah, our strong draft count is still good as well. So we don't need to worry about running out of those in the middle of fights.
Go back.
Okay, so bomb and powder. Bomb. And we're gonna be fighting a dragon in the next mission. Not the ancient dragon, but the red dragon. The red dragon's a pretty intimidating boss, and he does a lot of damage and has kind of difficult to dodge attacks, kind of like the Archdemon. But he does have a gimmick that makes him considerably easier to fight. Alright, so pretty nice there that we were able to scroll the screen.
Full of dragons and wild.
That was a quick screen. So our goal when we initially fight the dragon and his treasure hoard is not going to be to kill him. Our initial thing that we're trying to do during that fight is bring him down by approximately a quarter to a third health. After that, we're going to be taking him for a little ride.
Which path? The area reeks of sulfur, and earth-shaking snoring reverberates throughout.
It's my turn. Simple.
We're going to pick up the rock here. We're not going to use the rock yet. So this seems like a lot of setup, and it kind of is.
The red dragon has awoken from its slumber.
But it's all worth it. Because that initial burst of damage is pretty key to our success against this boss.
The room is small, and fighting here puts you at a disadvantage. You can escape via the door on the right.
So we used up our strong draft, so we didn't waste any time with that, and we're going to leave the room. So unfortunately, we are going to lose the ability to use the rock against him, but that's not as important. Wow. So that was really, really bad, because he just took away my weapon. That's bad enough to where I'm considering taking a death to this fire breath. Because the problem is I'm never going to be able to get to that weapon now.
Waiting to unleash its fiery breath. Ready
Yeah, this is going to be pretty bad, but we're going to give this a shot. So we're kind of... We have to do a little improvisation here. Okay, so yeah, losing the weapon there was, in that way, was really bad. I might take another death here. Yeah. There wasn't a lot I could do about that. I just had to take it, otherwise I wasn't going to do enough damage. So it's not uncommon to kill him on this screen using the ballista, but usually you kill him on the second shot. So in essence, I only lost maybe like 20 seconds, but that's still time I didn't want to lose. And resources that I had to spend in order to get that. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and move forward. This cooking session has the dragon steak, which is the most impactful food inside of the game, so I need to make sure I don't screw up cooking that. There is only one of them. It does not respawn in a cooking session. But other than that, I am going to be cooking a lot of beans. If that sounds odd, you'd be correct. But funny enough, I mentioned how cooking things in different vessels and different foods produces different benefits, and maybe if you want a little bit more defense, you might cook something else. Or if you want more attack power, you might cook something else. Beans are actually just the best non-boss food in the game. Like, it's ridiculous how much better they are than anything else that's available. They give you 6% attack, 6% defense, and a 6% score increase. It is crazy how good they are. And since they respawn so quickly, you can do exactly what I'm doing here, which is just pre-season the pan and just prep, waiting for the beans to come up. If everything goes well, we should have somewhere in the vicinity of like I don't know, plus 62% attack, something like that. Yeah, I was maybe a bit greedy there. But yeah, 58 attack, that's about right.
The Mage's Tower, once greatly admired by
But funny enough,
magicians,
while there is a lot of
has a
skill
bastion
involved in
of
solo cooking, cooking as part of a team is actually a completely different experience all itself. Because it's so easy for people to screw up other people's timing in the process of cooking. And you don't really have a way to communicate with people. So it becomes kind of important to understand what people are trying to do if you have no communication with them. What role they're trying to fill in the
followers
cooking
of the
process.
switch path. You can access the laboratory in the upper levels of the tower by using the hidden elevator.
The other alternative is if you are part of like a team, like, you know, you have people on Discord or whatever, you need to kind of organize how you want to handle cooking. Who's getting what job? What are they actually trying to accomplish? One of the biggest limiting factors when it comes to cooking isn't really the food itself. It's the fact that spices are on a respawn timer as well. It's a very short respawn timer, but if everybody wants every single dish to get spiced, you're going to run into situations where like a spice is just going to be on cooldown. So because of that, it's usually a lot better to just delegate 1 or 2 people to spice dishes and the other 2 people to kind of putting things in the pot, cooking them, serving them. That way everybody's on the same page.
It's a dead end. There don't seem to be any stairs or pathways.
So as I mentioned, the Mage Tower B route is a lot of kind of auto-scrollers. We were just inside of a elevator before this. We ran through a couple of screens we didn't even need to fight in. This is a straight-up auto-scroller as well. This one, though, we are actually going to complete. Immediately after this, we run into basically the fight with the Chimera. So. Chimera is an interesting boss fight. I mentioned before with the Mud Golems that there are certain enemies that have animation invincibility. The Chimera is the most grievous offender of that. If he's ever in an animation where he does like one of his, like where his skin blows up or like one of his heads dies, basically any animation where it shows him taking damage is going to result in just an enormous amount of invincibility frames. So it's important to plan your bursts around hitting him. Like this is a fight where DPS isn't the goal, it's bursts. Concentrated sequential bursts on the boss.
The frantic researcher seems to have abandoned his experimentation and run off. The contents of the beaker are shaken uncontrollably.
See, like that power slam did no damage. Like actually no damage.
The floorboards are shaking loudly. They feel as if you could put a hole through them at any moment.
Okay, good. So we actually did basically the fastest Chimera fight you can do. Sometimes he'll break the floor and drop down to the next screen.
The Chimera, unable to move around in such a confined space,
But we did a good fight there.
curled up on itself.
So this is going to be the last talisman that we need to get. It's going to be in the Lost Woods. We're going to see another Monty Python alumni as the boss of this stage, so keep an eye out for that.
That you quickly lose track of where you are. It is said that only the hermit who lives here actually
Main thing to
knows the
do
way
there
out
is
of
to
this
make the
forest.
Panthers drop down to the ground, which we did. Oh wow, we didn't get wasps there. So normally wasps spawn.
Sensing a presence. Which path?
Gonna go ahead and continue on using bag
You
1.
have heard rumors of the
If you
Baron
recall, we
Resurrect.
had to spend a fair amount more resources clearing out the red dragon than I had wanted to. So that's gonna make this stage considerably harder to do quickly. But, you know, sometimes you run into some poor luck. Poor luck meeting poor execution. You know, I probably could have done a couple things a little better there, but when you're in the premise of doing a race or a marathon run, you just gotta kind of roll with it. So, Mash, if you really quick want to kind of cover again what runs are coming up down the pipe.
Yeah, so shortly after this run ends, we have pulled back with Dark Souls this time, doing bow only, so that'll be a very interesting run. Got Wise coming up after that, with Memories of Zelzita, and then Fable to end off the first day. And then going into Saturday, we got some Tales back to back. Tales of Zestiria and Symphonia. And then a good lot of Kingdom Hearts to end off the night bracket 3.
Anything that you're looking forward to in particular?
I mean, a lot of the runs, tactically, since going through the runs initially for schedule. But I'm very interested in watching the Demon Souls run for sure. That's a run that I'll be excited for, as well as the Azure Dreams tournament race that's happening near the end of the marathon. That'll be something interesting to see.
Here's your Monty Python reference, by the way, guys.
There was a couple other ones as well. We've already got to see Vermintide. I was pretty excited to see that one.
Yeah, Vermintide actually looked like a really cool run. I caught the last little bit of it as I was kind of prepping to get on stream, and that looked actually pretty cool. Nice little mix of just clean gameplay and out of bounds. It's the type of run I really enjoy watching.
But one of the more unusual runs that I'm interested in checking out too is Tokyo's Zanandu, which is also on Sunday, just before the end of the marathon.
Has breathed its last. Thanks to your
That game's, it's pretty interesting.
Congratulations.
It's sort of similar to like Wise and like the Tales games in some sense. Very different context though, and how the game plays out. But
So unfortunately, we can't pick up any other items because this is going to be the last leveling that we have, and we're only at level 24. So all that gear that we couldn't equip, we're never going to be able to
Do you
equip.
remember the runes
So
that Lucane mentioned?
I'm just going to have to
These
roll
secret
with what we
runes
got.
will open the
We
gate
will
to
be
the
switching over to the
illusionary land.
medium strong draft. I'll kind of talk about that in a moment. This is 2050. Roll fire damage. Damage dealt. Damage dealt's important for that. We're also going to check to see if we have anything that does damage to Draconic. We do not. And we're going to be on our way to fight an ancient dragon here. Just going to repair my gear.
Welcome to my... Which one do you want?
Learn my last skills, and we're going to be looking to clean up this game here.
You're back.
So we're going to use the Fractured Ruin Stones that we acquired to open up the Illusionary Lands and fight the Ancient Dragon. Ancient Dragon is an interesting fight. Normally, if you lose all of your lives in this game, what happens is that you can continue, which docks your score value, a number of other things, but you can still finish maps. For the Ancient Dragon, if you die, that's it. You have to do it over again. But luckily, you don't have to do something absolutely insane, like, say, redo all of the talismans or something, but...
The talismans are resonating in your power. The fate of the world is literally in your hands. So, seize the day.
So a good Ancient Dragon is killing him before he does an Immolating Breath. We shall see if that's going to happen. Oof, I took a death there. That's not great. But he's pretty close to death, so I might be able to get away with this. Got him. Time. Oh. Was that probably like a 207 or something?
The ancient dragon falls. You have
Oh,
returned
sorry.
it to its eternal
204 was the
204? Okay.
The immortal
It's a lot better
dragon
than I thought it was, because I
slumbers
had
once again.
some pretty rough fights
Congratulations,
on a couple
hero.
places.
With your own hands, you have defeated a myth.
So we can kind of watch the outro real quick here.
Oh yeah, we got plenty of time.
But if this looks at all interesting to you guys, I highly recommend it. Again, just really high quality beat 'em up with a lot of really cool mechanics. Each character feels very unique, and you can even
The
build
dragon's crown lay
uniquely
near the ancient
for the
dragon.
characters
It was
themselves.
the cause of this incident,
A lot of
but you
replay
can make it
value,
a symbol
Diablo
of
style
hope.
loot. Super cool. The difficulty levels also change gameplay quite a bit, and I'm sure Mash can attest to that at some point.
Without the demons,
Yeah, as
this
someone
is
who's
just an ordinary
been
crown.
playing this on the side
However,
casually with
the minds
Turbo,
of the
it's
people
been
have
a
ascribed
quite enjoyable
great
experience.
power to it.
More so in co-op, actually. I didn't enjoy it too much when I was playing solo, but co-op's been a lot of fun. And we're not quite together on the next difficulty, but we did enter hard mode, so that's been kind of fun.
You
But
need
the
to offer
step
the
up was
dragon's
quite
crown to the
interesting,
new
actually.
queen.
I started dying a hell of a lot more.
The crown of the Elysian king fits her well.
If you guys are all worried about, I should note that co-op
With the
doesn't
legendary
unlock
crown,
until
the
you
royal scepter
have defeated
and
the
the
first
throne.
9 dungeons, the
None
A
can
routes.
deny her rightful
That's
ascension to the
annoying
throne.
and kind of crummy, but just stick with it. Like, this game has so much to
Dragon's
offer.
crown
And
will
once
be a
you
symbol of
beat
power,
those initial dungeons,
inspiring
any new
fear
character
in the
you make
hearts of
doesn't
any
need to do
who would
that
threaten Hyrule.
again before you do co-op.
It represents the fact that
At least on
warriors
that
who
file.
defeated the mightiest foes reside in Hydeland and will rise to defend it from any threat.
I mean,
Queen
I think the
Vivian
initial
invites
part
you
of the
to work
game,
at the castle.
even though it's kind of a gate, it's
Value
kind of like
your freedom,
a
so
warm
you
up,
politely
and
decline.
it's kind of like a very nice, like kind of slow, at your
However,
pace kind
You
of,
vow to work for
you
the
know,
queen
introduction
whenever
to the
need
game,
may arise.
I think.
In turn, she blesses you.
But
with the
once
royal
co-op does
favor
open
for
up, I
life.
think it does get a little bit more entertaining for those people that do like to play games in a co-op setting, or you know, a beat 'em up style.
As you
RPG
exit
like
through the
this.
great gate, many soldiers turn and salute. You have completed a legendary accomplishment. Queen Vivian would lead Hydeland well, reclaiming its past borders and reasserting itself as a powerful nation. The tale of the Dragon's Crown ends here. Despite accomplishing enough for myriad lifetimes, your story is just beginning. The dwarves had once built a great kingdom underground. Now, the few surviving dwarves lived banded together in small villages. They were nearly exterminated by the ancient dragon, and the underground kingdom became his. The dwarves dub you the Noble Avenger and convey heroic status upon you. your words are given incredible weight. Dwarves drink with you and dream of a great and powerful nation led by the noble Avenger. Their hopes are rightly placed, as you will eventually lead them to glory, your name echoing throughout the halls of time.
Alright, and that's going to be Dragon's Crown, new game, Dwarf. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Name's Turbodog702, and